Okay, hi biomedical scientist students. So we are going to go over some common heart diseases and conditions. We're going to go over 6 of them. There are more than 6, but we'll discuss some of the main ones. So this follows along with page 41 in your lab journal. So on this page, you're going to listen to this video, you're going to watch these animations, and you're going to jot down some notes on these conditions. Now, it is rare for a person like Anna Garcia, who's young and relatively healthy, to maybe have died of a heart condition, but it's not impossible. And so we've been exploring the structure of the heart, and then we are going to explore some abnormal hearts, and we are also going to look at Anna Garcia's heart and do some comparative anatomy to see if she had any of these abnormal heart conditions. So when you're taking notes, it's important that you are making sure that you're noting the specific structures affected. So don't just take some note, or definitely take some notes on what these conditions and diseases are, but also make sure that you mention the specific structures of the heart so you can identify them potentially later. So the first condition is called angina. And the spelling of this is down here at the bottom of your screen. Angina is a fancy way of saying chest pain or discomfort. This is due to reduced blood flow to the heart. And patients that have angina often describe feeling squeezing, pressure, tightness, or heaviness in their chest. And it's a primary symptom of coronary artery disease. So if a patient comes in with feelings of angina, they're most likely going to do some tests to see if there is an occlusion in one of the coronary arteries. So if we take a look at our heart, remember the coronary arteries are the arteries that deliver blood to the heart. And if there's an occlusion of this artery or of one of the coronary arteries, well, think about what that could do. So these occlusions occur due to fat deposits building up, and these fat deposits then occlude the artery and restrict blood flow to the heart. The heart also then has to pump harder to try to push through that blockage, which is the reason why you feel that chest pain and in the condition called angina. So if blood is restricted, it's going to cause all the downstream tissue, so tissue that is downstream of the occlusion, to die, to become necrotic, necrosis meaning death. And if that happens, that can lead to a very serious heart attack. So angina is the chest pain or discomfort due to reduced blood flow, most likely due to a coronary artery becoming occluded with plaque or fatty deposits. The next one is called atherosclerosis. So this can happen in any artery, but it becomes very serious if it happens in the coronary arteries. So this is kind of related to angina. Angina is the chest pain, the discomfort due to a coronary artery having restricted blood flow. And so atherosclerosis is the condition of fat deposits, aka plaque, that builds up in the coronary arteries. And so as you can see from this picture, this is a kind of a cross-section 3D diagram of a artery. And with the plaque buildup, it narrows the artery. It restricts that blood flow. So remember, blood is delivering nutrients, it's delivering oxygen, it's got some white blood cells in there to help fight infection. So if you're restricting that blood flow, you're going to cause some problems to any of the cells and tissues downstream of that need that fresh blood. So the condition of the plaque buildup is called atherosclerosis. Risk factors for developing atherosclerosis. So think about these risk factors and if maybe Anna Garcia had any of these. So high cholesterol. Cholesterol can build up these plaques, so having high dietary cholesterol can cause atherosclerosis or put you at risk for it. Diabetes, obesity, smoking, high blood pressure, and aging. Doesn't really sound like Anna Garcia had a lot of risk factors for atherosclerosis, but it is a possibility. So the third condition is called a myocardial infarction. Now that's just a fancy way of saying heart attack. So you've probably heard of what a heart attack is before. So a heart attack occurs due to the death of heart muscle tissue. It's a very, very serious condition, and it occurs when oxygen supply to the heart is reduced, most likely because of an occluded coronary artery, because coronary arteries are delivering that blood and oxygen to those heart muscles. Myocardial infarction is usually the result from plaque blockages, so atherosclerosis can cause myocardial infarctions. Blood supply to the heart can become blocked when plaque from elsewhere in the body ruptures and then forms a blood clot. So heart attacks can be caused from plaque, but it also can be caused from blood clots that dislodge from somewhere in the body and travel to the coronary arteries and then block blood flow to the heart muscle. So due to decreased oxygen supply and the death of the heart muscle, patients with heart attacks or myocardial infarctions experience immediate chest or arm pain, increased heart rate, sweating, fatigue, and nausea. And people do die of heart attacks. It's not that uncommon. All right, so the fourth condition is called aortic stenosis, or AS for short. So this is a heart condition that occurs when the aortic valve, so that is this valve right here. So if we take a look back at the heart here, remember the aorta is the main, the largest blood vessel of the circulatory system, and it comes from the left ventricle. So all that fresh blood that is now oxygenated, the heart pumps it through the aorta and delivers it to the rest of the body. Now remember, valves control blood flow through the heart, and one of those valves being the aortic valve. So aortic valve stenosis is a heart condition that occurs when the aortic valve narrows partially, obstructing blood flow across the valve. So AS is often caused by calcification of the aortic valve as one ages. So this is usually seen in older patients, which stiffens the valve and narrows the valve opening. So these calcium deposits stiffen the valve, and the valve no longer can function properly. So this is something where there aren't necessarily a lot of symptoms. It usually takes many years to develop symptoms, but in some patients with very severe AS might feel chest pain, dizziness, and fainting during exercise. Congestive heart failure are common symptoms of aortic valve stenosis. So again, the calcification, the hardening of the aortic valve. The fifth condition is called patent foramen ovale, or ovale, patent foramen ovale. It's kind of a weird name, PFO for short. And this is an abnormal hole present in the wall between the upper chambers of the heart. Okay, so remember, we've got two upper chambers of the heart. It's kind of hard to see on this 3D diagram, but let's zoom back a little bit. So we have the right atrium and the left atrium. And the two atriums are separated by the septum, okay, the wall. However, in patent foramen ovale, there is a small hole present between the two chambers. So remember, blood is only supposed to flow one way through the heart. And so if there's a hole between two atriums, that's going to cause blood to flow incorrectly. It's going to cause the heart needing to pump harder to try to correct it. It is usually asymptomatic and also can be harmless if the hole is small enough. But PFO is present in approximately about 25% of the population, but many do not know they have the condition. In rare instances, though, PFO may cause some severe complications, including stroke, migraine headaches, and heart attacks. The cause of PFO is not well understood, but they are suspecting that it might be a genetic problem, so something that is inherited. So the reason for this, so this hole actually naturally occurs in fetuses before the infant is born, because before the infant is born, the heart of a fetus is not pumping. It relies on the mother's circulatory system, and then when you're born and you take your first breath, that hole closes. However, sometimes that hole does not close, thus causing the PFO condition. All right, the last one, thanks for hanging in there with me, is called congestive heart failure, or CHF. And it's a cardiovascular disorder that occurs when your heart cannot pump enough blood supply to the body. So it's kind of a broad name condition. CHF can be caused by a variety of disorders, including structural defects with heart valves. So some people's valves, oftentimes the mitral valve, so the one that's between the left atrium and the left ventricle. So sometimes mitral valves can become prolapsed, they can become disformed. There are certain diseases of the heart muscle called cardiomyopathy. Abnormal heart rhythms, arrhythmia, and heart attacks can also cause congestive heart failure. So in congestive heart failure, the walls of the ventricles are thin and weak. So remember, ventricles are separated by a heart muscle called the septum. And so if the heart muscle walls are thin and weak, they are unable to adequately pump blood out of the ventricles. And so blood then remains in the ventricles, and it reduces the amount of blood that reaches the rest of the body and lungs during each heartbeat. So every time the heart pumps, it's unable to pump fully due to that weakened septum wall. Factors that increase the risk for CHF include high blood pressure, coronary artery disease, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and structural heart abnormalities. So patients with CHF commonly experience symptoms such as fatigue and weakness, shortness of breath, swelling of the lower limbs, decreased alertness, and a reduced ability to exercise. All right, so those are some 6 main conditions of the heart, some diseases and conditions of the heart. So hopefully you jotted down a couple bullet point notes focusing on the structures, and then also think about these 6 and which, if any, could Anna have been at risk for.